Hey, what's up, guys? It's Abel. Good to see you all. Going to give you a little video about eclipses today. So I read through all you guys' answers. A lot of you guys had some great questions about why it doesn't happen every month or every day or every year. And so I thought we would kind of talk about eclipses a little bit today. So what I'm going to do is I have a light bulb, represents the sun. Okay. I have our little moon on a stick, like we did when we talked about the phases of the moon. And then I brought my old globe. I snuck into the school and broke in and stole my globe. So, some things to kind of look at here first of all. So, if you look at the globe, we have the sun over here. We obviously have day on this side. We have night on the back side here. Some things to kind of think about when you're talking about eclipses. Okay, there are two basic types. There is a solar eclipse and there is a lunar eclipse. Solar eclipses happen when you have the moon blocking out the sunlight from hitting the earth. So that only happens when the moon and the sun and the earth are in a straight line. And if you were to think about it like this, basically it happens when this moon goes in front of the sun. And you can kind of see there on my video how it blocks the light from that light bulb from hitting you guys' video, right? So if you were to think about that in terms of the earth, watch what happens. So I have this in an angle. We're going to put this in front. And if you notice, it creates a shadow that goes over the earth. You guys see that? So that creates an eclipse. So if we were in Australia right now, you would be having a solar eclipse. Now, if you look super carefully, kind of hard to see, but super carefully, you can see that there's a really dark circle and then there's a lighter shadow around the outside of that. That's because of how the rays of light go around the moon itself. So, you guys probably remember a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, we had a total eclipse. Here at Tri-Center, we had a partial eclipse. So if you are in the shadow that's in the dark part of the shadow, the direct sunlight is blocked, and you get what's called a total eclipse, right? So you can see how the moon basically blocks all the sunlight from that light bulb. But if you were on the outside of that just a little bit, there would be some of that sunlight that would come through. So when I saw the eclipse at Tri-Center, you could still see about that much of the sun coming around. So you can see how it creates light, right? So that is a solar eclipse. And that's the shadow right here. Now, a lunar eclipse, more common, and happens normally like this. So we have the same thing. We have the earth, the moon, and the sun in a straight line. The difference is the moon is on the back side. So this would be normally a full moon. So if you notice, the moon is lit up on the back side. You can see how we can see the entire front side of the moon and not the back side of the moon, right? And so that creates a normal full moon. But what happens if this is just down a little bit farther? If it's down a little bit farther, the shadow of the earth covers the moon, and that creates a lunar eclipse. And if you guys want to look up some videos about lunar eclipses, it does some really cool stuff. Makes the moon look kind of a blood red when it happens because of how the light bends around the earth, basically. And so that creates a lunar eclipse. Now, one of the biggest questions that people have, this is happening. We talked about these phases of the moon. We talked about how this moon is going around the earth every 28 days, right? So you should think about it. We should have a solar eclipse once a month, and we should have a lunar eclipse once a month. But that doesn't happen, right? We don't have solar eclipses or lunar eclipses very often. And the reason is because I kind of mentioned this when we talked about the phases of the moon, is because the moon's orbit is a little bit different than the orbit of the earth. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to draw this for you so you guys can see. So I'll throw that down. I'm in my toy room again here, guys. Pretty sweet. So I happen to have a little whiteboard in our little room. Whoops. And I'm sitting on this tiny chair, which is pretty sweet. But if you think about it like this, okay, obviously when we talk about ellipses, we're talking about this kind of a circle, okay? And basically you have the sun in the center, and then you have the earth, or whatever planet you're talking about is going around, right? Now, let's picture it like this. If the Earth's circle is kind of on this plane, so this straight line, right? And the moon's path around that is just a teeny bit tilted, kind of like this. It's about 8 degrees. And if you look at that, the only time that you're going to have eclipses, and I'll try to draw it as a circle, kind of hard to see in 3 dimensions, but the only time that you're going to have eclipses is where these overlap. Now, if this is 1 year right here, this ellipse for the actual Earth, and this one is 28 days, how often would these two actually intersect? Not very often. It does happen. Happens a couple times a year, usually. But the difference is, the big thing is, for solar eclipses, is you have this huge Earth, and the moon's shadow is like this big. So in order to see the solar eclipse, you got to be inside that tiny shadow, which doesn't happen very often. The next total eclipse that's going to be in our area is like between 5 and 10 years from now, and it will be down kind of down by Oklahoma, not in our area exactly, but just a little farther south. But again, it happens because of that little shadow, right? But this process of these things overlapping are what creates these eclipses, right? A couple things about a solar eclipse. Solar eclipses are only going to happen during a new moon. And then in this one, it's going to be the sun, and then you're going to have the moon, and then you're going to have the Earth. And then a lunar eclipse is going to happen during a full moon. And the order is going to be the sun, and the Earth, and the moon. And that gives us the difference between lunar and solar eclipses. And so I'll probably give you guys a few more things on Monday to kind of give you a couple questions about doing a little bit of research. Feel free, as you guys are doing this, make sure that you're doing that research and looking these things up and trying to, create your own knowledge from stuff that's out there. This just gives you guys kind of an idea of what's happening. But these are called eclipses. Again, only happens when everything's in a straight line and you have that perfect ellipse that's covering up the other one. So it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And if you guys get online and you look up, you can find out when the next lunar eclipse is, when the next solar eclipses are. I'll probably ask you something about that on Monday a little bit. But anyway, that's eclipses. If you guys have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, love to hear your feedback. If you guys have any problems or things that you need help with, please let me know. Alrighty? Talk to you later. Have a good day.